Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our GAE Facebook Live. I am Lisa Morgan, President of the Georgia Association of Educators and a kindergarten teacher. And we would like to welcome you to our May 12th edition.
I'm Sharon Doe. I'm a physics teacher in Augusta, Georgia. I teach high school, and I'm the current vice president for the Georgia Association of Educators.
And I'm Carly Shaw, and I teach physical science in Fulton County, and I'm the current secretary treasurer of GAE.
And we have with us this evening Grace Aiken, who is our campaigns and elections staff person, and she's going to be sharing with us about a couple of Social Security bills, well, they're laws that have impact on our members here in Georgia who are educators. Many of you work in systems that you do not pay into Social Security. So we're going to talk this evening about these bills and the impact they have on our members and what we are going to do about it. So Grace, you want to just kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So as Lisa mentioned, I'm going to be diving into GPO and WEP, which are two federal provisions that essentially hurt Georgia educators. So the first is GPO, what they call government pension offset. And the second is WEP, W-E-P, which stands for Windfall, Elimination provision. So not to get too in the weeds, understand that this is the result of policies that were put in place in the 1970s, where they effectively said, our federal lawmakers said that it's not fair for an individual who pays into, or excuse me, who will get a pension to also get Social Security. So the problem is, if you're an educator in Georgia who works part-time or summertime jobs to make ends meet, then there's this federal provision called WEP, the Windfall Elimination provision, that reduces your Social Security retirement, disability, spousal, or survivor benefits. And then with GPO WEP, it also reduces your Social Security, spousal, or survivor benefits. It actually hinges on spousal or survivor benefits of people who get a government. So, but if you are working like you do in Georgia in a position that is not covered, quote unquote, by Social Security, then you fall into this category. So that's essentially every educator in the state of Georgia. So that's the problem. So looking big picture, of course, when people don't know this at the end of their retirement, or excuse me, at the end of their careers, when they move on to retirement, they're actually surprised to see how much their Social Security is reduced because they have this pension. But of course, the problem is in the state of Georgia, educators have not been paid essentially a living wage in decades. And so at the end of the day, hardworking Georgians are being screwed out of their money and benefits. So that's the issue on the back end. On the front end, it actually discourages people from becoming educators, because what you have is a system that says, well, you're not considered part of Security, paying into Social Security, so you're not going to get this benefit at the end. Well, if I know that there's another job that I can get that benefit into my career, I'm going to be incentivized that. So it's actually a double whammy on both sides, which is why it's really. And so there are two bills in the one in the House, one most recently introduced in the Senate in April of this year to repeal GPO and WEP. Right now, House Resolution 82 is what it's called. That's the Social Security Fairness Act of 2021, has just been introduced, actually was introduced in January, and there are 142 co-sponsors. Now in the state of Georgia, unfortunately, we only have one sponsor from the state of Georgia in the U.S. House, and that's Hank Johnson. But of course, we're going to need folks like you wonderful GAE members to make some noise about these provisions and get our congressman to sign on to the bill. The other bill is in the Senate, S1302. That has 28 co-sponsors. However, it just get introduced. So text for the bill actually isn't available yet. Once it is, we'll certainly make it a point to share the bill. Now, we already have been given word or confirmation, if you will, from our two senators that they do support the repeal of GPO and WEP. So I'm sure they end up signing on. So with that, I know that's a lot of information. I will stop in case there are any questions from the peanut gallery.
Okay, so we did have somebody in the comments say it was breaking up a little bit. So basically, let me make sure I understand this. So if I worked in another job before I became an educator, or if I work during the summers, I work a second job while I'm an educator, and I'm paying into Social Security. When I retire as an educator who's not paying into Social Security in my district, the Social Security I earned from all that other work is going to be reduced.
Correct. Just by virtue of you not being in a Social Security covered job.
Okay. And so also if I have a spouse and they pass away and I'm entitled to spousal benefits because they worked and paid into Social Security their whole life, that will be reduced as well.
Correct. Makes no sense, right?
I was just going to ask, what's the justification for that, for reducing the spousal benefits or the survivor benefits?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes from this, these, I guess, policy that you shouldn't be able to quote unquote double dip. So back in the 70s, unfortunately, I think that's probably the advent of the attack on workers' rights and workers' benefits. And this is, I would assume, one of those provisions that came out of it. So yeah, it's not fair. I mean, I think that's the very clear conclusion to arrive at, but it has been on the books for 40 years now.
How are we double dipping if both you and your spouse are paying into Social Security? But like I paid in the first county I worked in, the county I'm working in now does not pay into Social Security. So that means that all those years I paid in, I just lose all that money?
Effectively. I mean, I think there's a whole lot of nuance to it. I don't know how much you lose, but for example, if your monthly government pension is $600, your Social Security spousal or survivor benefit is reduced by $400 according to GPO. And if 2/3 of your government pension is more than your Social Security benefit, you could lose all of your entire Social Security benefit. So yeah, it penalizes folks for becoming educators.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's about time to repeal GPO and WEP. Now, the only unfortunate thing about it is it would not be retroactive. So for those folks who are already retired, unfortunately, this would not. It would apply going forward.
Wow.
Okay.
It's time for that to be repealed.
So Grace, are educators the only public employees impacted by this?
No, not at all. Firefighters, police officers, anyone who's worked in a government job with a pension, as a matter of fact. Now, there are 15 states where this is the law on the books, at least where those jobs are not considered Social Security paying jobs. And so, Georgia is one of those. California actually is one of those. I believe New York is one of those as well, progressive states too. So it's really shocking. But yeah, this basically hurts civil servants. People who have dedicated their life to public service are once again being penalized for it.
Okay, so I'm thankful you named my congressional representative, Hank Johnson, so he has signed on. So I'm going to send him a thank you note. Can you let our people watching tonight, our members and our potential members that are going to join us in this campaign, what are we going to be doing? How are we going to do this so we can let our congressional representatives know that we want them to sign on to these bills?
Yes, great question, Lisa. So we have discussed having, preliminary conversations with members of the House, preferably one-on-one among members who live in their constituencies. So it'll be really important for, if you, no matter what region of the state you live in, if you want to be part of this effort, to make a call, send a letter, write an email to your congressperson to say, hey, we really would appreciate you to sign on to this. Now, if we have to, and escalate it into, something a little bit more, I guess you could say more forceful, we can also do another action alert campaign like we did with the vouchers.
So we can do 2 clicks?
2 clicks.
Okay, good. We know. Okay, so and I know we're not there yet, but we're going to work on, I hope, and put up, because people that are just learning about this, I know they're going to need some help writing that letter to their congressman, and we're all going to write both of our senators. So we'll be able to put up on our campaigns page some draft language,
You got it.
know what to say to them if I don't fully understand it, but I can copy the words down that help me explain what I'm talking about.
That's right. And I think for folks, especially, let me just go ahead and give a shout out to GAE Retired. They've already taken the initiative to send a letter to all of Georgia's congressmen and women to ask them to repeal GPO and WEP. And in it, they were candid about how this has affected them. And so that's something to consider if you are, heading into retirement, planning for retirement. Think about how this affects you. Be able to put that into story form and share that with your congressman. Be the best congressman or woman is going to be the best way to influence them.
So, Grace, can both the GPO and the WEP reduce your benefit?
Yes.
How is that possible?
Sharon, I wish I could tell you. I wish I was there in the 1970s to be able to say, don't do this. I think, I read some background information about GPO and WEP and how, the fact that they say that people were gaming the system, that actually came from, I think maybe they saw 5 or 6 people total who actually were getting sort of, increased benefits, but for the most part, that wasn't the case. So it's kind of sad, but yeah, there's really no good explanation for why it's the case. Sharon, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have somebody who put in the comments and said, so are you saying if you have a part-time job paying into Social Security, you shouldn't have that part-time job anymore? And what I'm understanding is no, keep that part-time job, because that part-time job is providing you income, because it's whether you have it now or not. If you are in a system that doesn't pay Social Security, you're not going to get the Social Security.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate false choice that our members are forced to make as a result of this.
Okay, so I think that's the last couple of questions we have. And we have several things we're going to be talking about this evening. So our next one is from Joe Fleming, who has joined us, our GAE lobbyist. And Joe, it's over. It's finished. It's done. The legislative session, it's all done. The governor has signed or vetoed or let it lay on his desk and pass everything, right?
That is true. That is true. And I apologize for being late. I was out hunting for gas unsuccessfully.
Save that thought for later.
Yeah. But I understand the pipeline's flowing again now. So hopefully any gas shortages will be addressed soon. Yes. So the 40 days that the governor had to pass or sign or veto legislation has come and gone. Um, Virtually every bill related to education that came to his desk was signed. Unfortunately, that includes the voucher program that GAE and GAE members worked so hard to oppose. There are a lot of problems with that now new law, including the fact that there's no limit on what the expenditure or appropriation from the state might cost. There's no cap on the number of students or families that can participate in it. And essentially, the existing law and the newly signed law offer very little accountability and transparency. So we have a situation where there's a state appropriation to private schools, and there, as I said, is virtually no accountability on how that money is used, what the results are, the kind of families that are utilizing the program, whether they already have their kids in private school and are using this to subsidize their education. So we're disappointed on that front. I will tell you that during the summertime, we will be working with some of our legislative friends and others to develop legislation that does add accountability to the program, that requires similar reporting requirements of private schools that public schools have to submit when they get money from the state of Georgia. Some of the other kind of bills that he signed, there was a bill to allow school districts to use modes of transportation other than the big yellow school bus to pick up students. The bill seems geared toward transportation challenges with homeless students, so that they don't have to send out a big bus. They can send out a smaller vehicle to accommodate the actual needs there. There's legislation, SB 42 he signed. SB 42 started as a bill to remove discipline data from the school climate ratings. During the course of the legislative process and committee hearings, the bill actually ended up taking out that language that would have kept the reporting of discipline data from the school climate ratings. And it added one of the pet projects of the legislature this year, the ability for homeschool students to utilize club and activity programs at their local public school. So if you're a homeschool student taking one class, perhaps even virtually, with a local public school, you're eligible to try out for the sports teams or to participate in the activities, band, drama, whatever, in the local public school. There were a number of other bills related to charter schools, including the funding of local charter schools that the governor signed. There was a bill to require the teaching of the harms of vaping alongside of the teaching of the harms of tobacco and alcohol use in classes such as that. They also had instruction on human trafficking and awareness for the problem with human trafficking in Georgia. That was a pet project of the governor. Most importantly, the governor signed the state budget for the next school year, which is 2021-2022, that cut education funding $400 million. That's on top of an adjustment to the mid-year existing fiscal and school year budget, where another $400 million was cut. So in one session, the legislature cut $800 million from public education. Now, we're going to be talking about in a little bit the money that's coming down from the federal government in the form of COVID relief funds. Many legislators proclaim that public schools are overfunded now, but that doesn't relieve the state of its constitutional responsibility to fund public education. And in fact, in the most recently passed American Rescue Plan Act, there's language that appears to say that if funding has not remained constant from the state, that it might jeopardize some of the federal funds coming down to Georgia for education. Lisa and I are going to be meeting with the state board of, or excuse me, the State Department of Education soon to discuss that. And we're preparing a letter of comments to the state board and school superintendent Richard Wood to discuss ideas that we have on how this money can be spent. There is $3.8 billion coming down from the federal government for education in Georgia in the American Relief Plan. Some people call it CARES 4. This money has to have a relationship to COVID. One of the primary areas that this money must be spent on is learning loss that might have occurred during the past school year. Lisa's got a look on her face. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
It's not learning loss. It's not lost. Our children cannot lose learning. It can be delayed because they haven't had the opportunity yet.
Okay.
Sorry, that's one of my soapboxes I will climb on pretty quickly.
Well, unfortunately, that's the term that is used in the legislation that enabled these funds, but I'll try to strike it from my vernacular. So we have sent a letter to our leadership in local school districts across the state, outlining some ideas on how that money can be spent. And on one of my screens, I actually have it up. I can't find it right now. But again, it's got to have some relationship to COVID. And that can be, for example, a local school district could replace or repair HVAC units that don't allow for the proper circulation of air.
But if you are working like you do in Georgia, in a
Did somebody say something?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to answer somebody and messed it up.
Okay. It could be used for those purposes. Could be used for could possibly be used for construction items on items related to COVID and to the distancing requirements of the CDC. There's a variety of things that can be utilized on the CARES money. If I can find my letter. Lisa, you might have it in front of you.
I can pull it up.
My inbox has gotten nuts. Oh, I have it right here. Hold on.
Okay, so Joe,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
thing I want to point out as we're talking about this is the fact that the law says the state and the locals must consult with educators and their unions before they submit these plans. So they must consult with GAE and our local associations before they submit these plans, and it has to be meaningful consultation. Because we all know, Sharon, did you get a survey yet? And they want to send us out a 3-question survey and said they consulted with us. So
Right.
it requires more than that 3-question survey. They really have to bring you to the table and talk to educators. So if you're watching us this evening, contact your local president, because we have given them all this information and we have given them a template so that you and your local president can be at the table when they're making the decisions.
That's right. And the plan that's developed has to be posted on the local district website as well. So it is critical, as Lisa said, to exercise our rights under this bill to consult with and advise and have meaningful discussion, as Lisa said, with the local districts. We talked about things that can be done to make sure kids are are well prepared for the coming school year. There could be, as I think Fulton or Atlanta is doing, an extended summer school kind of programs, or after school programs that can be, those are examples of things that can be funded with this money. Reduction to class sizes and mitigation of the distance of children can be included. Increased staffing as well, for things like school nurses, guidance counselors, therapists, etc. Those can all be funded under the American Rescue Plan Act. There can be bonuses too. In addition to what the state has granted, there can be bonuses for recruitment and retention, for teachers that are working extra hours on virtual teaching, and to avoid furloughs and pay cuts and other disruptions that may have resulted from COVID-19. There can be the creation of a separate paid leave category, so that teachers and ESPs don't have to use their existing sick time, so long again as it's related to COVID. That could be included. There's a whole variety of things. Of course, the purchase of additional PPE, personal protection equipment. I mentioned air quality, facility, and I thought this was kind of interesting. It might be an interesting expenditure by local districts. It can be used to fund other improvements to school. For example, to replace older soft furnishings is one thing that the NEA suggests it could be used for. Respacing of playground equipment, improvement of water quality as well could be covered under this. Technology is another big area where some of these monies can be used. Where there's a lack of broadband access, some money can be used for that, or for technology such as Chromebooks or things of that nature. It can be used for putting internet on school buses, either in a way to drive around to create hotspots, or that students on a longer commute in some of the more rural districts could have access to the internet while on the school bus. So there's a wide variety of things. There's $3.8 million coming to Georgia in this, most of for education, most of it going to the local districts, some going to the state district as well. So again, to reiterate what Lisa said, I think your participation and your involvement in this process is actually absolutely critical. And we will be, again, meeting with State Department of Education. We've got a letter we're working on, and essentially the same activities should be happening at the local level.
Okay, Joe, so my question, because I've been in okay, we all know that we have buildings, and this has been a concern of members throughout this school year. We know ventilation is one of the things that was recommended to increase, and how many school buildings have been built in the last 10 years with windows that literally do not open. So there is no way to increase the ventilation. So is that one of the things this money can be used for?
That's my read of it, and what others have written is that it could be used for the replacement of windows, for example, which I would imagine in some districts is a pretty significant expenditure. But yes, I do believe that that would be covered under the requirements of the American Rescue Plan.
Okay, good.
In the classroom where the windows don't open.
To replace them, yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, so, okay. So Joe, you mentioned bonuses, and I know we've had concerns from several members throughout the state about the bonus from the state. We have some members who haven't received them yet. Can you tell us where we are and what we're working to do on that to help our members?
So we have had a number of calls from our members that did not receive bonus checks that we believe should have received bonus checks. And it seems to rest on the fact that these educators have not signed a new contract for the coming school year. I have been assured repeatedly from the State Department of Education that if a teacher was employed at the time that the payroll was run for the processing of the state provided bonuses, that educator is in fact eligible, regardless if they've resigned, as long as they were employed at the time those checks were cut, regardless of whether they're coming back or not. So I know in one school district, halfway between Atlanta and Athens, a number of teachers were denied because they had not signed contracts for the coming school year. If they were employed, and I think all of them are currently still employed, then they should have received that $1,000 bonus check that was issued. If you have any problems with that, we're happy to intervene. The Department of Education has specifically commented on 4 cases we have right now that we've asked them to look into. So I'm hoping to hear positive results from that, and an admission by the local district that made a mistake and they misinterpreted the bonus, and that those checks will be flowing. And I will mention also, we have another member who is a part-time employee who is retired from her original position, but is working part-time in the school district. Part-time employees are also eligible. They get a smaller bonus of about $500, but they are eligible. So if you're in a district where you know bonus checks have gone out to your colleagues and you're still employed, even if you're not coming back next year, you should have received a check. And some districts, and they may be using the ARF money, are doing additional bonuses as well on top of the $1,000 bonus. So you may want to check with your local district on that. And that might be an item you want to discuss when you meet with the school board and/or the superintendent.
Okay. I am going to jump in real quick and do our first commercial for the evening. We've been talking about legislation. So we have heard, everyone has heard, it's been all over the media, all over the news about Senate Bill 202, which, depending on which you listen to, there's been lots of different names for this bill. But the reality is it was passed, it was signed, and we are all, as voters in Georgia, going to be dealing with this bill next year unless it is repealed. So next Tuesday night at 6:30, we will be having our next Rights at Night session, and it will be a complete analysis of SB 202, what the provisions mean, what are those things that the media is not talking about that are in the bill that may impact you when you are preparing to vote. So I'm putting the link to register in the comments, and we would love to have all of you register and attend that session with us next Tuesday.
Lisa,
And-
a couple
Yes.
of things if we've got time.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to mention the fact that the governor did also sign the parental leave bill.
Good news.
Yeah, which is good news. For the first time ever, I believe, the state will be offering paid parental leave for employees that are adopting a child, who have brought a foster child into the home, or having a baby. It's 3 weeks. It should be more, but it is a first step. One of the things that will be high on our agenda in the next legislative session will be to assure complete funding for that. I'm not sure how they're going to fund that initially, since it was not in the budget, but it is a good first step. We'll be working to make sure that's funded as well. I also want to mention, and Grace probably has more details on this, there are 2 special elections coming up very soon. One in Cobb County for Representative Burt Reeves' seat. Runs roughly, it's kind of Kennesaw and a little bit south of Marietta is that district. The other is a special election to fill the seat resigned by Representative Greg Morris from Vidalia. Includes a number of rural counties in that part of Georgia as well. There are qualified candidates. We'll be looking them over and perhaps getting involved in those races. Then we expect a third special election in Savannah for the seat currently held by Representative Mickey Stevens as well. He's announced his intention to resign, unfortunately suffering from poor health. To my knowledge, there's been, I'm not sure he's actually resigned yet officially, but he has said he's going to resign. And so we'll be watching out for that. So we've at least got 3 legislative races right now that members should be aware of as well. And we'd love to know any local feedback on the candidates that are running in your area. The other thing I just briefly wanted to mention is it is likely that there's a special session this year coming up. I'm going to say probably December, November. This is a special session to deal with redistricting. And redistricting is the redrawing of lines, both congressional lines and state legislative seat lines based on the census data that is preliminary data is available to the state right now, but they'll be drafting new maps and should vote on those new districts this fall or winter in place for the 2022 elections. Grace, did you want to add anything there?
As far as the special elections, there are 5 candidates in House District 34, Reeves' district, that have qualified. Then in District 156, which is Greg Morris's district, there are 3 candidates who have qualified. And then as for redistricting, committee members have already been selected to lead that. And I can put in the chat for y'all a link to get some background information on redistricting if you like.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
And Grace, I will stick that in the comments so the people that are watching us can see it as well. So these special elections you mentioned, are they like, we got some time, or is that happening soon?
They will be on June. Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead.
It'll be a jungle primary on June 15th.
June 15th.
Jungle special election.
A jungle. Okay. And so for our people that are watching us that don't understand, when we say a jungle special election, that means just like in the jungle, everybody gets in the jungle together. So all the candidates, whether they are a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Green Party, whatever their party, they're all in one election at the same time, and they call it a jungle. So that will be June 15th. Grace, Joe, am I correct that the provisions of SB 202 will be in effect for those special elections?
They will be, yes.
Okay, so our members who vote and are in those districts definitely need to attend our Rights at Night session next Tuesday night so they can understand what's going to be different when they go to vote on June 15th, or if they choose to participate in early in-person voting or requesting an absentee ballot.
And it's not really too early to note that there are statewide elections in 2022. And it's going to be a really fascinating election. There, of course, Governor Kemp is up. We expect him to have strong Democratic opposition. Stacey Abrams' name has been mentioned, but I don't believe she's officially announced. There are really strong candidates on both sides of the aisle, up and down the statewide races. Of course, there'll be legislative races as well. But you may have seen in the news, a number of high-profile candidates have announced their opposition to some of the incumbents, both Democrats challenging incumbents and in some cases primaries.
Okay. So I'm going to do our next commercial pretty quickly because I'm going to talk. Grace and Joe always give us such great information on Facebook Live. And you have an opportunity to get an in-depth session with both of them at our GAE Leadership Development Academy, June 7th through the 9th. It will be virtual. We're going to stay safe and not gather together yet. And the registration is now available. All GAE members are welcome to attend. I said this last week. If you are watching and you're thinking, oh, no, that's for the leaders in GAE. If you are watching and you are a member, you are a leader. I will say that. So if you need somebody to tell you you are a leader and you should attend, if somebody says, questions you, no, Lisa said I was a leader, I should attend. We want to have lots of our members attend. Grace and Joe will be doing sessions about legislation and lobbying and campaigns and elections, so we can learn more about those processes. Carly will be doing a session with our CFO on for our secretary treasurers in our association. Sharon and I will be doing a session for presidents and vice presidents, and we will have sessions for lots of different subjects. I could say what some of the others will be. We'll have membership and organizing. There will be a session on teachers and technology. Heaven knows we've been dealing with that this year. Racial and social justice, communications, legal and liabilities, being a board member, grievances and negotiations, and difficult questions and conversations. So I hope and member benefits. How can I forget member benefits? So I hope if you are a member, you will consider signing up and joining us for those three days. It will actually be afternoon on Monday, then Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning. And we will look forward to all of you joining us for that. We will all be there, and we're all going to be smiling and learning a lot together. So, into commercial number 2. So we're at that point in the year when everybody's counting down, right? How many days left, Sharon? You're muted.
Until the 25th of May. May 25th is our last day.
May 25th. Carly, what's the date?
I haven't been counting down, but I believe we're May 26th.
Okay. I heard somebody earlier today say May 28th was the day for them. So we are all getting very close to that last day of this most, I'm not going to use that word unprecedented, because I think everybody's tired of unprecedented.
Yes.
This most unusual school year. How about that one? But one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, and I know, Joe, that learning loss thing, it just gets me. So what are we thinking as we are moving forward? We've been hearing lots of people saying, well, this has shown us that we can do public education in a new way. Y'all tell me, and if you're watching us tonight, put it in the comments. Is it really time for us to be thinking about that, or do we need to take some time and let this most unusual year marinate before we start talking about what we've learned and discovered as educators this year?
I think we need to take some time to let it marinate, because we were thrown into this situation and we didn't have a lot of time to prepare or train for this type of teaching. And it's been very challenging because of that reason. And it has changed throughout the year. It hasn't been consistent since we started being off and doing remote. It hasn't been a consistent thing. It's changed around. It's moved different things. Some counties are still doing it. Some counties went back early. It's just been a hodgepodge of responses. So I think we need some time to let it marinate.
Sharon?
We actually talk about what we've discovered new and what's going on every day on my hallway, because we can't wait to share if something happened that was different, or if we learned something new just by playing with the technology. And I kind of like the online platform for both the face-to-face students and the online student, because it eliminates so much paper. When you only get $100 a year to spend for school supplies, and a case of paper is $33. But now we have this wonderful online platform that the kids can submit all of their work online, and that eliminates the need for the paper. Now, unfortunately, there are some downsides to that when kids don't have the proper technology. But my district has made every effort possible, even providing mobile Wi-Fi hotspots to our students. So it hasn't been smooth sailing, but the boat is still floating.
I think that's how we do. We haven't hit any icebergs.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that's something, and $100, yeah. And I'm thinking back to $100, and yeah, a case of paper is $33. So that's a third of the money. And that one case of paper would not be enough for the whole year. I know.
Mm.
No. So
Dr. Doe, I heard the other day that kids may never know never have another snow day. Of course, you guys probably don't have snow days in Savannah, but kids go to bed the night before thinking, oh, no school tomorrow. But now with virtual, there may not be another snow day.
yeah.
I talked to some of my colleagues in Minnesota when we had the RA there, and they didn't know what a snow day was. Because their district already had the online learning platform for when the snow is too high for the buses to get through and all of that. So they don't have snow days. They just revert to online learning days.
That's right.
So the only way we would have a snow day is if there's no power, because then nobody's Wi-Fi would work.
There you go.
So that would be when we get to snow day. Okay, I'm going to get on another one of my soapboxes, because we had somebody ask a question in the comments that students are leaving their primary grades and can't read well, and how do we close this gap? Read to children. That is my answer. And that is something that I think we have lost with our parents. Read to your child from the time they are in the womb until the time they come to kindergarten. Read to them every day. And I know, y'all, I know you have all experienced this with a child, that they get that favorite book and they want you to read it every single day for months on end. I see Joe smiling. You've done that, haven't you, Joe?
Wacky Wednesday.
Wacky Wednesday was the book. See, he even remembers the book. When we read to children before they begin to come to school, they learn so much about reading that you just can't replace that. And that's where we have to begin. We have to go back, read to our children. I saw a post the other day saying if children know their know nursery rhymes before they come to school, all of those things that just build literacy before they ever get to school. I've had students who came, I had a student one year, I will never forget this child. She had been read to at home. She had seen her parents read. She told me one day, my grandpa reads the newspaper every morning when we eat breakfast. This child came to kindergarten. Y'all, she didn't know any letters. She didn't recognize any letters. When she sang the ABC song, it was a never-ending song because she would get mixed up and go back and be singing it over and over. But she was reading by the end of the year because she had been read to, and she knew those basics that you just get from reading over and over. And by the end of That's what we've got to do. We've got to make reading an important part of our life again. And we've got to make reading fun. If I could ever say anything to my colleagues that teach pre-K and kindergarten and first grade and second grade, it would be read to your students every single day. Even once they learn how to read, continue to read to them and read the fun books. I've actually got a book sitting here on my desk, Click, Clack, Moo, Cows That Type. That read the fun books. My kids love that one. And if you need a fun book to read to a child, The Three Little Wolves and the Big Bad Pig is one of my children absolutely love that book. So find the books that the kids like and read to them and read to them and read to them. And I think as an early childhood educator, I think one of the things when we're saying that that's what we've got to do for our children to be reading, we've got to put reading for reading's sake back into our classrooms and not spend all our time worried about reading from a worksheet or a passage or phonics. Read to read and enjoy reading. So I'll get off my soapbox. Tonight has been soapbox night for Lisa. But that's my question. And one of our people commented, said, remember, you guys are educators and that's what y'all do. Yes. And the person that commented, I happen to know he's a bus driver. And I think we will all say, we want you to remember that our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our paraprofessionals, our school secretaries, our custodians, we all know, we have all been in this together and we are all educators together. And I think this year has shown us more than any other that we are all in this together as educators and we are all educators. So, want to let you know that next week, because of Rice at Night, we will not have Facebook Live next Wednesday, but we want you to mark your calendars because on May 26th, we will have our final Facebook Live of this school year. And we will have our new executive director, Dr. Craig Carter, with us, so we can all get to know him. And our members and people that are watching can get to know him as well. So we are excited about that. And Carly tells me she keeps wanting me to forget about the number of children with COVID. Yeah, sorry, Carly. I'll just say the number for today. And even though the number of cases, if you have been watching this and you have seen that the number of cases in adults has gone down significantly, I think every day for the past week, the number of cases overall for all ages in Georgia is now below 1,000. But the number of cases in children remains at an average of 127, which is pretty much where it's been since mid-March. We now have 101,982 children in Georgia who have been diagnosed or have tested positive for COVID-19. So we'll talk about the good news with that though, because the vaccine has now been approved for 12 to 15-year-olds. So I'm gonna say, okay, this is really bad, but we're gonna be hopeful because the vaccine has been approved for our 12 to 15-year-olds, and 11 to 17 is the majority of the children in Georgia that are testing positive. So hopefully that number will come down as those children are able to be vaccinated. So let's end on a happy note. I know, Carly, you are a mom. So tell us about Mother's Day.
Oh, well, my daughter is in Wisconsin. She moved there, so I didn't get to see her, but she did text me. And I did get to ride down and spend time with my mother and grandmother for Mother's Day. And then we went and spent time with my husband's mother. So we were all mothers on Mother's Day.
And Sharon, I know your boys must have done something wonderful for you.
Yes, we actually went out for ice cream, and it was their idea. They took me out for ice cream. We had not gone out for ice cream in a long, long time. We went down to the Riverwalk, nice weather, walked around the Riverwalk. It was great. It was great.
Okay, Joe, we know you're not a mother. So I'm going to ask you, because now that you and Grace, now that the legislative session is over, we're done, everything's signed, you got some plans to relax?
Yeah, but I've got a son who's a senior in high school. So
Oh,
I'm counting the days down like Sharon is too. After that date, as long as he graduates, I'll be fine. But yeah, we're very excited.
and Grace, I know you must have some wonderful plans.
Yeah. Going to the beach in June. So that'll be exciting.
Okay. And I have plans, but I don't know where I'm going yet. So I'll let you know when I find out where I'm going. It could be a couple of different places. But I want to thank everyone for joining us again this week for our Facebook Live. We will not be here next week again because we have Rights at Night on Tuesday, and we want you to join us for that. And then on the 26th, we will be back with Facebook Live with our new Executive Director, Dr. Craig Carter. Till then, you all have a great rest of the week and a good week next week. I know you're all counting down. And the other thing I will say, because once we get to this countdown time, it's almost over. So you all have a great evening.
Good night.
Bye.